to, well, my choice. I'm Dorsa. It's been a hot minute since I've been on the streams because I've been getting, I've been kind of rethinking my life choices in medical school, and medical school is also rethinking its choices by having me. So it's been rough. But I'm alive, I'm in one piece, more or less. Med school is fine, haven't kicked me out. They still love me, they still want to, they still want me to continue, so we'll see how that goes. On the other hand, poor Ding. Yeah, I wish I had, good things to say about what happened, but just poor Ding. Because, I mean, he's such a sweet character, and it's so weird to see how he kind of lost the world championship. And I say this because unfortunately I wasn't able to actually watch the game live. I just heard of the result and then looked at the game, and it was like I expected this cool crazy H4 G4 blah 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 type of game, and then it's like a very blah calm game that just didn't go Ding's way, and it was just so comfortable. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you see a world championship deciding match, and it's game 14, blah blah. You kind of expect, or I guess maybe not expect, but you kind of hope, fire and blood, and this was anything but fire and blood. The endgame was pretty fun, so don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of educational moments, but the kind of crazy attack that we expect / hope, it unfortunately was not the case. But it's also pretty cool to see a young kid just becoming a world champion. You might think oh yeah, if he could do it, maybe I can do whatever it is that I'm trying to achieve. So maybe a nice role model for a lot of other kids. It's always nice to have fresh faces rather than just the same 10 guys always playing each other and always playing the same openings, and you can just sit there and pretty much predict the whole opening / middle game, and sometimes the result too. So it's definitely refreshing. But yeah, definitely feel free to just let me know what were your hopes, dreams, thoughts, anything about the match, and generally I don't think a lot of us expected Ding to lose. And again, not anything against Gukesh. It's more we just knew more of Ding, so we just knew more how he thinks and how who he is, and he's just been around more, probably because he's older, haha, But yeah, so for today we are just gonna be kind of looking at ideally game 14 and game 11, but we're gonna see how things go. If we can only do game 14, we can kind of do game 11 at a different time. You guys are gonna have me until end of the year, so yay. All right, so I kind of wanted to jump to the game from this position just because I was trying to find a cool position that would be a moment defying everything, puts in place type of deal, and I couldn't. I thought this was a very good example of what I was talking about earlier, that the game was just very monotone. I don't know, maybe not monotone, just very chill. Maybe that's the better example. So we'll definitely kind of go back and look at earlier parts of the game, so don't worry about that part of it. But it's in this game, white played queen d4, and we're kind of trying to figure out as black, do we want to trade off the queens or no? So you have to kind of decide. If you do want to trade off the queens, the b3 pawn kind of looks yummy. So you kind of have to, take that into consideration. However, if you do trade off the queens, does that help your chances of actually winning, or is it just going to be a little bit weird because you just have an extra pawn, but you actually can't really use it? So I think those are important decisions that we gotta make before we commit to the exchange. So white played queen d4, black to move. I'm gonna give you guys a couple seconds to kind of wrap your head around what do you think you should do. Obviously, if you've seen the game, you might, already have a couple ideas. But even if you're just kind of glanced over it, you kind of know that there is, like, the future positions, how it will look. So you might, that might skew your thought process a little bit. But still, try to decide of, like, yourself, you're playing as black. Your opponent plays queen d4. Do you think the position makes sense for you to trade off the queens? Would you rather, do you think you'll have a better chance of winning or advantage if you keep the queen? So just think about those, and I'll be monitoring the chat. So yeah, I'll give you guys, let's say, like a minute-ish. Obviously, we also have in-person audience. Thank you for being here. So yeah, good luck. Oh my god, please, one at a time. The chat is so busy. Now, again, like, I totally get it, because you might obviously not have as much fun with the position, because the one thing I've also noticed teaching more online and online is that everybody is so much more comfortable with tactics, because you can just, openly chess or openchess.com and just kind of go for, like, click on a puzzle and it'll be like tactics back to back. But when it comes to strategy, people have a harder time kind of practicing strategy, because they just don't really know what to look for, because the way I learned it was through books. I mean, these days you can do it through videos like what you're doing right now. You could do it through like Chessable, you could do it through YouTube, you could do it through good old books, you could do it through just coach training. So there's like so many different things you can do. Video seems to be the poppy thing these days. But generally what I would say is try to kind of figure out a way to incorporate more strategy training to your chess routine, because tactics are easy, makes sense. You're sitting on it, let's say you're sitting at a dinner table, not what I was originally gonna say, but you're just sitting somewhere, you have like 3 minutes, you wanna like do like a couple tactics. So you just pull up the app on your phone and then you just do boom, boom, boom tactics, and you get like 10 tactics done in a couple minutes. And it makes sense because you're still training, but you can't do the same thing for strategy as openly, because you have to actually like sit down, calculate, evaluate. You have to actually, like, you can't just necessarily go with your gut feeling when it comes to a strategy. So this is why I thought like this game was so cool, because it's not like the dynamic bam bam boom boom that we would expect from a win. So right now black decided to not take it. He just played queen b5. I don't think queen takes d4 is a bad idea. However, I do think that if you go down this route, you are kind of setting yourself up for an easy peasy draw, because even if like bishop d5 feels pretty chill, because like white, like black can try to decline, or white can try to like hunt that bishop in a way. And if this pawn structure with the rook ending, this is classic draw. Again, obviously there are mistakes that can be made, but it's a theoretical draw. Like book-wise, this is like, like the Dvorsky Endgame book. This like he would roll around a little if you don't draw this game. So I feel like that, like, when you know that your chances are between like, if I go down this route, then probably I'm not gonna be able to like bug my opponent as much. Then you want to make sure that you're being very well informed that, okay, if I take this pawn, yes, I'm a pawn up, but I can't really use that pawn in the end game, and it's probably going to end in a draw. It's just a matter of when. So if you do trade off the queens and if you do eat the pawn, you're not going to be able to bother your opponent as much or annoy your opponent, which kind of, fun fact, when I initially started doing stuff for the club, oh my god, 5 years ago, I wanted to like start a new class, so the chess and psychology class. And the way that we kind of decided, you know, like on the chess and psychology name was, I really wanted to like name it something like how to annoy your opponent, or like play annoying chess, or something with the word annoy, because that's just like, you want to keep that as a factor in your mind. You don't want to just be like, oh yeah, you know, if I do the queen trade, I win the pawn, great, let's go. How are you bothering your opponent? You know, you win a pawn, but what do you do with it? It's the same thing with developments. Like if you're just beginning of the game, you're getting pieces out, you don't want to just put a bishop on e2 or d2, because like, okay, you got the bishop out, but what is it doing? Is it causing any problem for your opponent? Probably not. I mean, maybe certain situations, but generally those bishops are just going to be like, you know, like not doing anything. So we want to make sure that we're not just choosing moves because we're choosing moves. You want to have a purpose behind it. You want to annoy your opponent. So yeah, I think the club decided that the word annoy would not be very friendly, so they decided on chess and psychology. But the whole purpose of the chess and psychology was to teach you the mindset to annoy your opponent. So if you've been watching me for a couple years, you've probably heard me you know, talk about this concept. So long story short, queen trade, you do win a pawn, but there's no annoyance. So queen b5 makes a little bit more sense in that sense, because it's a very strong psychological move. You're not just accepting the queen trade and the pawn. So the other part of it is that Gukesh is kind of showing Ding that, like, you know what, man, I see what you're doing. You want to just trade off and simplify the position, but I don't want to. I'm ready to play this whole game until king and king. Like, if it's going to be a draw, let it be a draw like that. So like Gukesh is trying to give himself the best possible chance to annoy Ding the most. So Ding kind of played b4 here, which we don't really like. Yeah, exactly. You don't want your opponent to be comfortable. Like, I'm not telling you to go kick the poor guy under the table. Please don't do that. But at the same time, like, you don't want to just make their life super easy. Like, I don't know if you guys would have like heard of this or not, but when you and your opponent are in time trouble, you don't want to, you know, make simple moves that you don't want to like. You don't want to just like take something because your opponent's most logical answer is just going to be to take back. And if that's a good option for them, they didn't waste any time in their like super low time to think about that. It's just automatic. Okay, take. I gotta take. Or like if you give a check and the king only has one space to go to. I mean, if it's a good idea, if it's a good check, yeah, please go for it. But if you're in time trouble, you don't want to just make a move that then your opponents will have to do like only one move and they don't have to think about it. It's kind of the same idea. Like, you don't want to make it easy on opponents. Yeah, exactly. Or like if you don't know what to do at the same time, you don't want to make like, you don't want to make choices that would help your opponents. Like, you don't want to help your opponents, you know, open up their rook, or you don't want to help your opponent start advancing a pawn. So even if you don't know what to do, try to figure out, okay, if I was playing as my opponent, I would really want to, I don't know, push this pawn. So let me go ahead and block that idea, even if I don't know what else I want to do. So that way you're at least, you know, kind of like blocking it. I like to call it wish blocking, but yeah, thanks. I hope that helps. So queen b5 kind of has that idea. Like, again, you don't, like, the queen on b5 is not trying to go anywhere special. I'm not like looking at anything super duper here. I'm just trying to not trade off the queen, and I'm asking you, okay, your move. What do you want to do? And I feel like there are a lot of ideas that your opponent like could do. Like, that's a perfect example of what I'm trying to say. So you're giving your opponent too many options, so then he doesn't know what to choose from. And none of them are necessarily like, I mean, okay, they're blunders, but from the chill moves, none of them are necessarily terrible. Like, you know, like rook d3 seems to be a good idea. King g2 seems to be an okay idea. Just because, like, you know, you're putting your king in a little bit of a safer choice. There's no bishop h3 coming on. So it's just a chill move. So now, like, white has a bunch of ideas to think through. Like rook b1, I probably wouldn't go for it because it gives like rook d8 like a chance. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean black is better or white is better. It kind of means like, okay, now that the rook moved away, black gains this file. So as black, that would give me a little bit of a joy if I get to develop the rook the way I want to develop it. Poingullis, I think that's the username. Apologies for not being able to read. It's very tiny. I mean, I'm respecting the opponent. I'm not sitting there, making raspberry noises or, singing in front of them. I'm respecting them. I want the best for them. I just don't want to make their life easier over the board. I don't want to I'm not trying, I don't know. Maybe we have different definitions of how to play chess, but you don't want to make your opponent's life easy over the board. Maybe let's make that clear. I don't want you to go stalk the poor guy or something after the game. So queen b5, I spent like 10 minutes just kind of sharing chess philosophy. So hopefully that helped a little bit somebody out there. All right, so opponents played b4. And again, it's the same idea. Like he's offering like, okay, please take this pawn so we can trade off the queens, please. Now, in this case, Gukesh did accept it because, from what I understand, if he wants to eat the pawn, he can't like put off the queen trade. And it's a little bit different because if you're thinking of this position, whereas like, this position when we ate the pawn, now your bishop is also kind of getting a bit in trouble. But in b4 situation, you're only trading off the queen. You're not trading off everything, basically. And again, to me, in my eyes, if I'm playing as black, I mean, not gonna lie, if I'm playing as black and my opponent offered me a draw in a normal game, I would probably accept it, even though if I'm a pawn up. However, it's a world championship match, so black has an extra pawn. He wants to push as much as he can. Maybe he'll squeeze something out of it. Maybe he'll get a win. Maybe, I don't know, maybe, Ding gets really tired and he makes a mistake. So we're all human. It's totally normal to be making mistakes. So I think everything combined, it makes sense for Gukesh to try to eat the pawn, keep as many pieces as he can, and see if he can squeeze a win out of the position. So rook a8. It's the same logic. So Ding wants to try to just trade off as much as he can so he doesn't lose the world championship, and hopefully he can get a draw. So the point is, like, right now you can't really avoid the trade. I guess you can maybe push a little bit on it, but again, you're not going to be able to put it off for long. So it makes sense to accept the trade. And now we're kind of going into the territory of, okay, it's like everything that needs to be decided is in the king side. So black needs to kind of start making decisions on how he wants to organize this king side. You can get the king up, you can start pushing pawns, there's a lot of options. G5 makes it very interesting in my mind because with G5 you are kind of giving your bishop a very strong square, so you might want to get this bishop to G6 so that it's kind of like to me it feels like it's like a little hawk watching over everything. And like with the pawn on G5, also again, like just little things, this pawn is not in your bishop's way, so this pawn could potentially be an anchor if need be. Again, not making any promises, just giving ourselves more opportunity. So after G5, white wants to trade off the bishops, black to move. What do you think we should do? Should we trade off the bishops? Also, something just popped in my head. We missed this opportunity. talking about chill guys, there's like a little meme going on social media of like a little, I don't even know what is that, like a little anime thingy that's like wearing like it's like it's supposed to be like a chill guy. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's like they just say, oh, I'm just a chill guy, I'm just like studying for finals, like I'm just a chill guy doing blah blah. It's like a very chill music with it.
Wait, is it like the character that looks like some kind of dog?
Yeah, that's okay. Like, I don't know what it is.
I've seen that a couple times. It didn't even register that it was a thing.
No, I've seen it a lot. It's like, just keeps popping on my feed. I need to stop liking weird stuff, but it would be fun. It's like a... Now the song is stuck in my head. Oh.
Is it a capybara?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I know what it is? No, but I know that's the thing you just said.
The world's largest rodent?
No way. Oof. I miss my cat. Okay. Yeah, so generally, I don't think we should take it. But for all the same reasons that we just said, like if you take it, the Rook Endgame is just going to be like a dead end draw. You might as well just shake hands. So if you want any chance of... You're basically, like, as black, I think the mindset is like, okay, I have an extra pawn, so I'm playing for 2 results. Most likely it's going to be a draw, but why would I just accept the draw when if my opponent gets tired or makes a mistake or anything like that, then I get to be the world champion. So I'm going to play until my opponent is just like cracks or goes belly up or whatever you want to call it. So in my mind, it makes a lot of sense for Gukesh to not simplify the position unless it gives him a different type of advantage. So yeah, like you want to not trade as black. So it makes sense to go something like bishop f5. And if you remember, like a minute ago, I did talk about the idea that you could also keep your bishop on g6. That's kind of like watching over everything. So rook c1. Oh, I saw something about a rook b2. Like this is, again, it's like right now, in this specific position, in my mind, it doesn't seem like there is like a specific one single move to do that would give like black advantage. No, there's a lot of little moves that would give black a good chance of winning, and there's not a whole lot of difference between g5 or rook b2 or king g7. It's just a matter of what are you most comfortable with. So if you think your bishop is going to be better on g6, it makes sense, do it. If you think with the rook on b2, you're going to have a better chance, I think eventually you're going to want to play rook b2. It's just a matter of, do you think you got to do it right away, or do you want to do this g5 first? Because if you don't play g5, it's not like they're going to go ahead and play f4 or something. Again, to be honest, I think they can. So it's again one of those things, like you have to figure out, like right now, if it's white to move, what do you think some of the things white wants to do? They probably want to try to think about trade. They may want to try to like maybe try to play f4 if they think you want to play g5. Maybe they want to try to like put the rook on d8. I don't think they want to play rook d8, but it kind of depends on what you think like white wants to do. So if f4 ends up being a big concern of yours, because if f4 it means you can't play g5 anymore, sure, go ahead, play g5 first. It's not gonna hurt your position, it's not gonna give your position like a, you know, like a super clear win. So I think a lot of it is just about what you think is going to be most valuable, because this is going to be a long game. So bishop d5, nope, we're not trading. Okay, I'm just playing king g7. Okay, you think you're gonna attack me? Makes sense. I kind of expected that. Haha. Bishop g6. We're just protecting this poor guy. Now, eventually, we might want to start pushing this pawn, because if you remember, when I saw the g5 move, I did talk about this might be used as like a little anchor eventually. So, with again, like these are all like possibilities. So, right now there may be like 50 different mini ideas going on for white head, going on to black head, especially because it's like move 35. So around move 40, you know, there might be a little bit of a time control addition. So you also don't want to make too many like committing moves right before move 40, because you may be making mistakes. You just want to keep your options open between, okay, which pawn do I want to push? You know, like how much king safety do I need? Or do I want to go completely banana with my king and put that poor guy on h3? So these are the things that you just want to like keep in the back of your head, and you can start making decisions, based on how your opponents would continue. So again, this endgame is supposed to be a draw. It is pretty equal. Having that extra pawn doesn't mean much. It does mean that black is playing for 2 results, you know, like excluding super blunders. So black is most likely going to draw, but if anybody is going to win, it's probably going to be black because he has an extra pawn. So we, considering this is a, you know, world championship game, black is not risking much by just playing on. Again, I highly doubt they would, you know, like make weird blunders like that. So just leaving that out there. So rook trade, what do we think based on everything we've talked about? Yay or nay? Yay, nay. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, we don't want to do rook trade based on everything we've talked about. If you were doing a rook trade and you were like eating a pawn somehow, like another pawn somehow, okay, probably. I'll think more about it. But based on everything it is right now, I'm not gonna rook trade. If I rook trade again, I'm digging my own grave in a sense because I would be making a draw. So rook b1, king up, rook e1. Again, you might be like, oh, what is this rook e1? Try to explain it to me. I can't. I'm sorry. Rook e1, the only thing that I can think of, like, I would want to move this rook somewhere. e1 makes the most sense because we think white wants to play bishop e4 to try to kind of force a bishop trade. So in that sense, it makes sense to play rook e1. But honestly, if you play rook d1, it's not the end of the world. Bishop e4, you could still play f5. Again, it's not the end of the world, but it does kind of interfere with your plans. If you were not planning to touch this pawn and you wanted to touch this pawn, then yes, it makes more sense to play rook e1. But rook e1 on its own is not attacking anything. It doesn't give black any like upper hand. It does, however, wish block white. So trying to get a terminology going here. So rook e1, white just played rook b4. I'm not sure why. Maybe just to open more room for the bishop. Now black again kind of making semi-chill moves. He played h5, so it's a little committal because he's kind of eyeballing playing h4, maybe, but he's also not, I don't think he's going to be playing h4 anytime soon. I think he's just like keeping his options open. I will also say this, when somebody plays h5, generally we don't want to go h5 and f5, especially when there's rook here, just because it will kind of make my king more vulnerable. So if I were to play f5, then you can try to throw in a check. Maybe then you can try to like pin this guy. There's absolutely no need for us as black to make a move like that. So after h5, again, white just played rook a4. So if you remember, white played rook b4, white played rook a4. Yay. You can kind of get a feel for like white is also like, okay, I don't know what to do. What do you want me to do? You want me to like shuffle the rook? Sure, I'll shuffle the rook because I don't know if you want to play h4. I'm just kind of waiting for you to decide. So a lot of this game is also waiting. So the thing about strategy is with like tactics and dynamic, you just grab a slipper and run. I had a better visual in my head, but it's practically the same thing. You just calculate a little bit, you know you have an attack, and you just go attack. But, and I use the slipper terminology because, you know, I'm from Middle East, and, you know, Middle East, Latino, the flying slipper is like a boomerang weapon, very important weapon. So slipper would be a weapon in that analogy. Just grab a weapon and you run. But in strategy, or like in this case, there is not a whole lot of flying slippers. So you need to kind of play it calm. You need to kind of like sit there, stare into your opponent's eyes, and wait for them to make a mistake, if they make a mistake. So after rook a4, rook e5, I like it. I have a very serious threat. I'm about to eat your bishop. So you got to move the bishop. And to kind of top it off, you can't play something like rook d4 because I would be very, very happy. Thank you very much. So, got to move the bishop. Bishop went to f3. They're attacking the pawn, but the pawn is also defended, so we don't need to address it if we don't want to. We could push this pawn. I do think g4 is a little too committal, especially because this is move 40, and if you're going to be getting extra time on a move 40, it's better to just play a chill move, like king h6, or even, I don't know, rook e6 even. Something chill so you don't, you know, commit to something before you calculate it properly. Because again, like on move 40, on big tournaments like this, people, you know, usually get a good chunk of time. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 40 minutes, sometimes it's just like 30 minutes. So it depends on the tournament. But when you know you're about to get, you know, time, you don't want to risk it. So you need to make your move first, then you get that time. So don't make a mistake on move 40, speaking from experience. So, king h6, king went back, now rook e6. Again, he's playing chill. So another thing, yeah, like g4, I think it could be a very, very cool idea, because let's say you play g4, then you can maybe follow it with like king g5, and then maybe you can follow it by f5, and then maybe you can, you know, start pushing these pawns. So it does have opportunity. It's just a matter of finding the right time to push it. So now we did our g4, bishop d5. Okay, I moved the rook. Personally, I may have delayed it a little bit longer, because if I play g4, I don't want to get bishop d5. But again, I don't think it matters a whole lot if you were to play like rook d6 first. The only thing, again, with like moving this rook away is going to be bishop e4. But if you know you're going to play f5, this doesn't hurt your chances too. It's definitely a valid option. So, finally got the king out. Now, f3, again, it's a very decisive move, because it's offering pawn trade, and like black has to be very, very careful, because if black does accept the pawn trade, now these two pawns are not connected anymore. This rook is pretty, you know, controlling of this rank, so probably not the best idea to take just based off of piece activity. And you can't really push this pawn, can't bring the king, can't really push this pawn comfortably, so it makes more sense to not take the pawn. But it, you know, like from white's perspective, from Ding's perspective, it's a perfect move. f3, you're kind of offering your opponent, hey, do you want to trade off the pawns? And if they take it, it's great for you. If they don't take it, you're not losing anything by pushing that pawn. So you're kind of giving your opponent the chance to make a mistake. All right, f5. Now, a move that I thought a lot about was f4, because I thought with f4, maybe, you know, like kind of push the king away, and then maybe like they can try to like push more over here. So I think personally this would have been an idea that I would have kind of tried harder if I was playing as white. But now the problem is like white has to think of h4, because if they take, now king h5 and this pawn falls, and like if this pawn falls, then this is going to be a problem. So white can't take. Let's say, I'm not sure, like let's say bishop c8. Okay, now h3. Okay, take. Now like these pawns are just scary. They're a little, to be honest, decorative. English. They're just kind of a decor pieces. But the problem is going to be that, well, do I trade it off? Do I keep it where it is? I don't know. Are these pawns just kind of pretty, or do they actually have any function? Again, I'm not sure. Depends on how the games continue. But personally, I would not, just like having this pawn on h3 wouldn't really be my top choice as white. So probably f4 was avoided for these reasons. And now is a bunch of shuffling of pieces again. Position is still pretty equal, but from everything that I know, Ding's clock is already showing only 17 minutes. So Gukesh is trying to see if he can kind of like get the bishop to e4, so then he can get a passed pawn on the e file. So it's going to be a lot of maneuvering, but he's trying for it. He's trying for it. See, again, like it doesn't, like it's not going to hurt anybody if they repeat the position once. But if you keep repeating it, then you don't want to make it threefold by accident. So bishop e6. You might be like, hey, hold on. How does bishop e6 help get the bishop to e4? It doesn't. Not right away anyways. So it's again one of those moves. It's like lots and lots and lots of waiting move. I am not a patient person. I like playing strategic games when there is a little bit of more dynamic involved in it. But to me, this position, like, I still want to be black. I don't want to be white in this position. Don't get me wrong. I have an extra pawn. I have a nice cutting of the king. I have a pretty plan to try to put my bishop on e4. So everything is aligned for black. But it still doesn't mean that this is going to actually work out for black. It still needs like a certain degree of like opponent making mistakes or inaccuracies. So it kind of feels like white is just kind of shuffling pieces though, right? Kind of rook went to a4, like what is this rook doing on a4? Okay, rook b2, I'm attacking, okay. Bishop goes to a8, so a lot of it feels like it's just reacting for white. All right, king f6, all right, I'll get the king up. And now rook f2. We're going to talk about rook f2 in a second, but what do you think is a good move for white? If you think it's rook f2, you're totally welcome to say it. But white to move, what do you think is actually a good idea? Okay, I can see rook a4 idea, kind of protecting and cutting. Yeah, that does make sense. Maybe rook f1. I'm not so sure what the rook would be doing on f1. I don't think it hurts, but rook f1 also kind of makes a really nice path for the bishop to just come to e4. What are you even worried about for your rook? You don't need to move your rook right now. I think the bishop is a bigger problem because like the white bishop is not doing anything and it doesn't really have any alternate places to go. So if you think your king is a little weak, sure, just bring the bishop back. Bishop g2 makes a lot of sense to me because if you kind of know the flow of the game, you can expect a lot of like weird quirky things like that. Bishop c6, I'm kind of, yeah, maybe. But if you think you're gonna move the bishop, just go back to g2 or honestly just put the rook back on a4. Rook f2 is pretty terrible, sorry. Now can you tell me why? It is still following the same principle that white has been trying. White's been trying to kind of offer peace trade for the past God knows how many moves. So what do you think about rook f2? Normal et super. I did not, but I feel like somebody's always going to be investigating something, so eh. So I don't know about opposition. So casual player, well, maybe try to expand on your thought process. Fair. Puzzle of the day on leeches. My apologies. I missed the puzzle of the day. Whoops. Yeah, so that's the whole point. I kind of try to hint towards it just a little bit based on like bishop placement, that like the bishop is a little too boxed in. So take and then bishop d5. You're kind of forcing the bishop trade, and you're going to go to a pawn in game that you have an extra pawn. So, and I always tell my students to, if you're not an endgame person, so if you don't want to go learn all those crazy rook endgames of like theory of like 2 versus 1 or like 5 versus 4, whatever, at this stage of your training, that's okay. But you definitely want to be confident and comfortable in your pawn endgames, because a lot of the time you're going to be presented with the option to trade off pieces to kind of convert the position to a pawn endgame. So you need to be okay knowing, all right, going to this pawn endgame, this is a winning pawn endgame, let's do it. Or, on the other hand, if this pawn endgame is not winning, you also want to be like, okay, this is not a winning pawn endgame, we're not going to go in it, that's going to be a problem. And I say this because I've seen like my previous teammates, like 2600s, making terrible judgment calls under time pressure when it comes to converting to pawn endgame or not. And I remember like we were watching the game with my one of my old coaches, and I would be like, okay, isn't that pawn endgame winning? And again, like I'm not on that much pressure, so I get to think it, but then the coach is like, yeah, he's got it, and then he wouldn't go to the pawn endgame, and then I remember the coach's face like face palming and all that. So pawn endgames, please learn your pawn endgames. So it makes sense because you're forcing your opponent into a pawn endgame, and you're going to be winning the opposition. And I think actually like this is kind of where it ended. So yeah, but it kind of makes sense, right? Because let's say the king moves, you're gonna find the right time to play f4. The right time is not now, because after they take, yes, you win a position, but then you have to push your pawn. We don't want to push this pawn like this, because we don't want to, you know, go to the classic pawn endgames. Whoops, we don't want to do that. We want to try to kind of for lack of better word, do the cobra style. You want to like kick your opponent's king away. You want to like suffocate them. So king d4, king d2. All right, you go where? All right. I don't know. I don't really care where you go. I'm bringing my king. I'm bringing in my king. I'm gonna be able to win this pawn. So yeah. And for a little bit more like not super experienced players watching our stream, don't resign ever. This game is not for you. The idea that like, you know, in this position just Ding resigns, it's totally different than what you go through, because Ding is for like that higher of a level is also kind of a sign of respect. I respect and trust my opponents, another grandmaster playing for the world championship title, that you can win this pawn in the game. I trust you. Now, if you truly do trust your opponent and you believe they're gonna win too, sure, resign, but please don't. Because in your guys' level, even like, I just told you, like pawn end game problems, like even in like 2500s, 2600s sometimes, rarely, but considering time factor and exhaustion factor, people make terrible judgment calls. So don't resign, please. All right, so this was the game. I did promise a quick look from beginning of the game, so I'm just gonna be rushing through it because the opening was kind of trying to have a hard time coming up with a different term than boring. Let's just go with chill. The opening was just as chill as what you kind of saw in the end game, because like, yeah, I mean, there's some kicks and fights and bites, but this is not really anything mind-blowing. It's just people fighting for center, people castling, you know, people trading, offering trades, people, again, trying to develop. A bishop going back to d4, where it just was. Again, I'm not trying to diminish the opening, but it's also not like, you know, like when you see like a dragon game or like a Najdorf game or a lot of other openings, those two are the first ones that came to my mind. You kind of expect a lot of like pull and fight and bite and blood and sweat and stuff like that. This is not that type of game. It's a lot about strategy. So black is comfortable. Black got the e5 pawn. Black developed a pawn. Oops, there's d5 square problem. Well, shall we take it? Shall we not take it? Well, maybe I can bring more pressure to it. So a lot of it is, again, just thinking that way. And in a big sense, a lot of it, like what you saw the second half of the game where I started the today lesson, is very similar to what you can expect the game have gone through. So I think actually the game that I started showing you was from this position. So just kind of showing you the opening, like it's again like a very, very chill game. It's very, no crazy moves, no crazy attacks, nothing super dynamic. Yeah, Catalan could be like that. But yeah, I highly doubt that in 3 minutes we're gonna be able to go through a whole different game. But you guys have me for a couple days, so I think that's something that we can also keep in mind to kind of like, I can sprinkle some positions from the World Championship match, but I also don't want to oversaturate it. So we'll see how things goes. But it is my pleasure being back here. I hope you guys have fun with me the next, well, I guess until end of the year. I do have a very scary surgery exam on Friday, so please pray for me. If you pray, if you don't, just wish me luck. Different languages too.
On you or someone else?
That would be fun, but no, I have to, like, it's an online exam to just show I understand surgery, which I do not. But I'll complain about that tomorrow. We can use tomorrow as you bring your games for me to analyze, and I can use it as my therapy session. So why not? All right, I hope you guys had fun, and I will see you guys tomorrow.